Hello, you gorgeous individuals, it's Kav here, and today I'm going to be talking about The Serpent's Secret by Sayantani Dasgupta. The Serpent's Secret is a middle grade novel about a 12-year-old Kiranmala who essentially is just living her regular life in New Jersey until her parents are taken and she finds out that she is actually an Indian princess. I was lucky enough to receive an arc of this novel from the lovely members of the Diverse Book Bridge team, which is an amazing organization that I think we should all be supporting. I am so glad I received this arc because this is a book that has been on my radar for a while, but I wasn't sure that it was one that I was going to jump up and get immediately until I received this arc, and I literally fell in love with it. As this is an arc review, this is going to be spoiler free, so I highly recommend that you stay here and watch the entire thing to find out all of the reasons this is an incredible novel that I absolutely cannot wait to be out in the world. Growing up, when I went to things like the scholastic book fairs at my school or anything, the books on the bookshelf never had characters who looked like me. The extent of my memory of representation growing up is one time I picked up a book with an Indian main character from my library, and that was just because the plot appealed to me. This wasn't a mainstream book in any way, and that's essentially the extent of my memory of representation. When I went to things like book fairs at my school, or to places like the library, or to children's bookstores or anything, the books there never had characters who looked like me or who came from the same heritage as me or anything, and you don't think that impacts you, but it does. It has a subconscious impact on you. Regardless of all the other amazing aspects of this novel, and trust me, this novel is literally perfect in every way, but regardless of all those other aspects, what I am most excited for is for the kids out there who are going to go to those scholastic book fairs or to their school libraries or to children's bookstores and are going to see this book with a character who looks like them on the cover, and with a character who has a name like them, who comes from the same heritage as them, and this is going to be revolutionary for so many kids out there. It's going to be the book that kids like me needed and never got. I cannot wait for that to happen. The way Dasgupta represents Indian culture in this book is done so well. The elements in this book really come primarily from Bengali culture, and I am not Bengali, so I can't speak on that, but it is own voices representation, so I'm not too concerned about it. From what I did see and how she tied in the negatives and positives of Indian culture, it was just done perfectly. The main character comes from New Jersey, and she talks a lot in the novel about how she was embarrassed of her parents. Like I mentioned at the beginning, when you never see yourself on the bookshelf, when you never see a character who looks like you on a book cover, when you never see someone with parents like you on a TV show, when you live in a town where everyone comes from a different culture than you do, it does impact you. And the way that the author represented that in this novel was so relatable to how I felt as a kid, and it's something that I'm still sad I felt about as a kid, but the way she put that into this novel, and she then tied it towards making the main character actually be proud of her culture and show her that her culture is pretty cool, was just done so beautifully, and is definitely what made this novel what it was for me, because it was done so well. But whereas I could go on and on about the representation in this novel, because trust me, it's fantastic, there are so many other amazing aspects I also have to cover. So let's start with the characters. As you all know, I am a very character-driven person. Characters are what take me in a novel, and it actually took me a while to realize how much I liked the characters in this book. When an adult writes a middle grade novel or a YA novel, I'm always hesitant to read it because I'm always wondering, can they actually get in the mindset of a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old? And Dasgupta did. She wrote a realistic 12-year-old, and I don't know how she managed to get in the mindset of a 12-year-old, but this book actually sounded like a 12-year-old's thought, and it's written in first person, so that makes it even harder to actually get in that mindset. But she definitely did, and I really felt like I was reading from the perspective of a realistic 12-year-old. And I also think that besides the mindset of the main character, how the main character herself was constructed and how the side characters were constructed and her parents and everything was done realistically. They had good parts to them and they had bad parts to them. They were created realistically. Sometimes it's hard to really create a realistic cast of characters in a fantasy novel because there are heroes and there are villains, and it's hard to do that realistically, but she definitely did. Furthermore, the relationships she creates between these characters was also just so realistic. They just were all so real. This novel is set in this fantasy world with all these different aspects that we can't relate to, but she managed to keep it real by having these characters and these relationships that were real. And speaking of fantasy, I also have to talk about how amazing the plot and world building in this novel was, because the world building by far takes the cake for me as the best part of this novel. Creating a fantasy world is hard, and it's especially hard when it's the first book of that fantasy world, because you can get into the mistake of info dumping a lot. It's obvious that the author took the time and the effort to actually create a world that she was proud of, or that really seemed like a good fantasy world. There are so many intricate details and elements of this novel, and the way it ties together fantasy with Bengali culture and with actual scientific elements is just beautiful, and it creates this amazing world that I cannot wait to be more immersed in. Just the creation and the development of this world, as we got to see it through the main character's eyes. We got to see her discover this world, and we got to see her grow to be comfortable in it. So we also kind of grew to be comfortable in it with her, because we kind of got to go on this journey with her. We learned about the world with her, so it didn't feel like all this info was coming at us. It felt like we were gradually experiencing this world and we were learning it with her. And by the end of this novel, I feel confident that I know this world well enough. Maybe not to go into it because I don't really want to, but I know this world well, and that's because of how she developed it and how she added all these intricate details into it, that I'm just amazed at the outcome of this unbelievable, incredible world she created. Now, I don't really want to get into the plot because, as I said, this is supposed to be spoiler-free, so all I'm gonna say is the plot is just as good as all these other elements, so I plead that you support this novel. I know it's going to impact so many Indian kids out there, and even more so, it's just a good book. It's a book you're going to enjoy. I'm not someone who reads a lot of middle grade, and I'm not someone who reads a lot of fantasy, but I enjoyed it in spite of those elements, and honestly, because of those elements. I think that she made those elements enjoyable for me, and I think that if I said that I enjoyed this novel, I can bet that quite a few of you will too. I will also leave my Goodreads review of this novel linked in the description below, and I will leave links to where you can purchase this novel if you have the ability to do so. It is out on February 27th, and with that, I'm going to conclude this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe because that stuff makes me happy, and comment down below whether or not you are going to be going ahead and getting this novel. And as usual, all of my social media and my Goodreads will be in the description below if you'd like to follow me anywhere else. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day or night wherever you are. Please remember, you're beautiful and you deserve the world, and I will see you soon for a brand new video. Goodbye!